Three, two, one.
We got to have a quick conversation about MOLLE. This is a topic I have not touched on before, and I didn't think I needed to until I started to notice that a lot of people don't seem to understand how to use MOLLE effectively. And I'm sure there's some people out there who don't even know what the heck I'm talking about. And really what I'm talking about is these strips of webbing right here. It introduces a layer of modularity that you could never get from any other system, and it also gives you the ability to set up your bug out bag or survival kit or whatever you want to call it in different configurations for different missions without having to have a dedicated bag for every single crazy in the world scenario you might have in your head. So let's get into it. I'll show you the right way to do MOLLE, the wrong way to do MOLLE, and 5 ways you can utilize MOLLE like I've done here. So let's talk about MOLLE. Okay, so we got to have an origin story here, because where the hell did MOLLE even come from, right? So, MOLLE, where did it come from? Well, glad you asked. It is the current generation of load-bearing equipment that is in use by our beloved U.S. military and NATO forces since the late 90s. But of course, you don't have to be in the military to flex a bit of MOLLE. This functionality quickly found its way into the civilian market, and that's why we're here. There's so much you can do with MOLLE. Here's a quick example right here. This light panel right here on the webbing, which is, by the way, called PALS. And suddenly, by the addition of this light panel, I have a fluorescent marker for my pack. Maybe in some situations this is a good thing. Maybe in other situations, it's not a good thing. The grid pattern of webbing enables a user to attach pouches, tools, and more to a relevant bit of gear. And in this case, we'll be using the brush fire pack as a point of illustration. But before we get into some of my favorite uses for MOLLE webbing, I have to stress this very super duper important point. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because you can attach your Baofeng radio to the side of the pack doesn't mean you should. Maybe it's fine just there for a minute, but that thing's going to fall off and go flopping off like a fish back in the water. So the best thing you can do is just use some intention and purpose when you're leveraging the mighty power of MOLLE webbing. With great power comes great responsibility. So let's go ahead and get into my favorite uses for MOLLE webbing. The first and most obvious use case is to attach a pouch, and there's multiple ways that you can make this happen. There's ballast clips, which are the most secure in my opinion. There's the old school MOLLE 2 straps that just button at the bottom. There are straps that fold under. There's all different types of variation, but as long as you remember this one very important thing, that strap that is attached to the pouch needs to be woven in and out of that MOLLE webbing, and if you don't do that, it's going to be loose and it's going to flop off, and odds are you'll probably never see it again. The second use is probably one of my favorites. I store gear ties in the webbing, and when I need them, I just got them there available, right? So, like in this case, I like to keep my pack off the ground so I can easily just secure it to the tree, and then I got easy access to my gear, and honestly, gear ties just have a ton of uses, so I just love having them with me. The next option here is just to skip the pouch, and yes, you can attach an item directly to the grid, like I've done here with this light panel, and it's designed to attach directly to the grid, right? Other items, not so much. So, you know, maybe you can attach a multi-tool to the grid. Maybe that's a bad idea. Maybe you should use a tool pouch for maybe a flashlight or a radio. But, you know, the big thing to remember here is, yeah, you can start adding a bunch of pouches and things will be more secure, but that's also going to add more weight to your pack. And if you're adding it on the outside of the pack, then you don't really have a slick channel there, and so those pouches that are hanging all over the place can sometimes make it difficult to get through like heavy underbrush and terrain. So just keep that in mind. Now, number 4, this is a great use for the webbing. I just like to attach a carabiner. Tons of uses for a carabiner. I can never not need a carabiner. Yes, perfect. Okay, wait a minute. Did I say there was 5 uses? Yeah, the 5th one, honestly, I don't want to mislead you. I have not tried this yet, but I can see it being pretty obvious. I could take this pack, lay it out like this, and you know, like on the ground, and use it as a base attachment point for setting up a tarp. Maybe I'll have an opportunity to try that out, and I'll put in a little bit of B-roll there. But yeah, those are a few ways that I utilize MOLLE webbing. Okay, so my 5 brain cells have run out of ideas, but I know there's more ways to use MOLLE webbing. So I'd love to hear your take on it. Do you use MOLLE webbing? Do you not use MOLLE webbing? Do you not know what MOLLE webbing is? And do you even care about MOLLE Webbing. So, with that being said, let's talk about one more important detail about MOLLE Webbing that a lot of people might overlook, but this is super important. So, when you're looking at a bit of gear that has MOLLE Webbing on it, here's two things I want you to take into consideration. The quality of that MOLLE Webbing. Like with this pack right here by Roaring Fire Gear, their webbing is seatbelt grade. It's literally a seatbelt cut down and sewn in here, double, triple stitched with the webbing, right? So there's no way this is going to come loose. It's going to come unstitched. It's not going to deteriorate over time, I guess is my point. So those are the two things I want you to always keep an eye out for. What is the construction of that MOLLE Webbing, and is it double, triple stitch? What does that stitching actually look like? Is it any good, or is it just garbage? So that's something to think about. Big, deep thoughts with your favorite survivalist on planet Earth, Blitz. So get out there in the woods, have a nice day, and I'll see you next time.